It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
All right, hold up real quick. Y'all know I never interrupt in the beginning, but just wanted to give y'all the heads up and apologize. I'm a little under the weather, also dealing with a nagging shoulder injury that I woke up today and it was feeling crazy. So I'm a little bit out of it. As you can see in the recording, what you're getting ready to see, I'm a little bit dozing off here and there. So I had to rewatch it, but I didn't record me rewatching it just because that would have took forever for me to get the video out. That's already taken longer than normal. So therefore, I'll let y'all get back to the video, but just wanted to tell y'all my apologies. Appreciate y'all.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Tuesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we're going to be talking the whole night tonight about my interview with Tucker Carlson, which was both recorded and aired last night. And I wasn't sure exactly when they would release it. I knew we were recording it yesterday, but I didn't know they'd turn it around that quickly. So last week I told you we would be doing a show on Monday, and then they published it Monday night. I said, I got to give everybody a chance to watch it. So I took the night off last night so that everybody could watch the interview. I wanted to see the reaction. I wanted to see the fallout. And now tonight, after having seen a lot of the discourse and reactions, it was extremely polarizing, as I'm sure you've noticed. And it's hard to quantify, but let's just say a lot of people really hated it. There are people saying they're going to leave the GOP. Not anybody notable or famous or anything, but I've seen a lot of people say they're literally going to leave the Republican Party. That's how mad they are about it. And I've seen a lot of other people say this is the best thing ever. That the Overton window has been shattered, that free speech has prevailed, censorship is over, gatekeepers have been destroyed, and that this is a momentous occasion. And so tonight, we're going to recap the interview. I'm going to talk all about it, how it came about. We'll talk about the accusations that went both ways in the build-up to the interview. We'll recap some of the discussion. And in particular, we'll talk about what I think was the most important part of it, the discussion surrounding sincere America First and those purporting to represent it, Joe Kent, J.D. Vance, Tucker, the usual suspects. And we'll also talk about the reaction, both the positive and the negative. And tonight we're going to tell a story. We're going to weave a story together. And it's a story about the conservative movement, about Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, about America First. It involves me, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson. And it's going to be a good show. I'm excited. I think everybody who's been watching the show for a long time recognizes the gravity of this event, the significance of it, not just for myself, but for the conversation. So it is truly historic. So we'll get into all that. Before we do, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Remember to get your shirt. We have our brand new Wang Half shirt, Fuentes.store. Wang Half, white ass, going hard as fuck. And we have me on the back. Fuentes.store, make sure to check it out. And I think that's all I'm going to shill for tonight. And I guess we'll just get right into it. I'm eager and chomping at the bit to get into it because there's really so much to discuss. I really want to unpack all of my thoughts and the significance of this because I think there's a lot that is unsaid. And everybody has had their hot take and analysis of this collaboration, of the interview, but they don't really know the whole story. They don't really know my story, and they don't really know what I'm about. And like Tucker said on his show, and I think it's true, I think that Tucker, like many people, they only know me from the clips. They only know me from the short videos they see on lately Instagram, but before that, on Twitter or elsewhere, and their entire perception and opinion of me and my show, and fundamentally what I represent, because it isn't just about my personality, but it's about our views, what we have been expressing for the past 10 years, this colors their perception of all of that. And I think it gives them a false perception. And I think that is deliberate. I think that that reality is something that has been deliberately manufactured. And I'll get into exactly what I mean by that. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how this interview came about, because it's sort of an interesting story. My relationship with Tucker Carlson over the past 3 years has been mostly contentious. And without getting into too many of the details, I was basically a fan of Tucker Carlson for many years and almost entirely supportive. But we had a significant beef over Joe Kent. And for those that don't know, Joe Kent is a CIA officer, Green Beret, who served in North Africa and the Middle East for the last 20 years. And he returned back to the United States and ran for Congress in 2022. In, I think, the 1st District in Washington State. And we'll get into that story in detail later, but suffice to say that's who he is, and that is the election that created a lot of acrimony between me and Tucker. And what happened in particular is that I caused Joe Kent to lose his election. Tucker happened to be a very good friend of Joe, and Tucker believed that Joe Kent represented, or could become, the standard bearer of real America First conservatism in Congress. And it makes sense because Joe is young, he's tall, he's good looking, he's a military guy, so he's masculine, he's got the right look. And his politics, according to Tucker and other people that supported him, was America First. Their vision, their version of America First, which they believe to be sincere and authentic America First conservatism. I made him lose. I rallied my supporters. They went to Washington State. They put up stickers. We had a website. They interrogated him at his events. And in the end, Joe Kent lost in an upset. They called it the greatest upset of the 2022 midterms. A district that was supposed to go Republican, it went Democrat. And he lost by less than 1%. He lost by about 2,000 votes. And so people credibly attributed his loss to my efforts, the efforts of me and my team. And again, we'll get into why that is later, because that's extremely important. But it was this which created a lot of problems between me and Tucker. And after this, Tucker Carlson worked with Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, who you may know. He's a Jewish leftist. He's been extremely critical of the war in Gaza. He was one of the chief proponents of the theory that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Many people consider him to be on our side. And by that, I mean the broadly Israel critical group that is trying to get the United States to stop supporting the regional conflict and the genocide in Gaza. And so Tucker worked with Max Blumenthal and Max Blumenthal's wife to write a massive hit piece about me in 22, accusing me of taking out Joe Kent, not because I had disagreements with him or any legitimate reason, but because they said I was deployed by the federal government or the Democrats because I'm some sort of federal agent. That's the only reason I could have opposed him. And so that's where all these allegations that I'm a Fed came from. This article in January or February 2023, it was published a couple of months after those midterm elections. And then somebody paid a group called Influenceable a substantial amount of money for people to repost this article and to push this narrative. It was a coordinated smear. And ever since then, I have been very critical and hostile towards Tucker. Now, this culminated. The reason I explain a little bit of the backstory, but we'll get into it more later, is because that was the flashpoint that sparked the feud, and the feud continued for years through 2023, 2024, 2025. And I was very explicitly and publicly critical of Tucker. And Tucker, behind the scenes, was pushing this story. And I will say, for the sake of this show tonight, that I believe that he was pushing that maybe in good faith. Let's be charitable and say maybe those were his sincere convictions. But he was making oblique references to it on his show. In private, he was very explicit when he was felt comfortable with friends of his or other people. And this culminated this summer in a show that he did with Candace Owens, where he explicitly and directly accused me and attacked me of being a hateful extremist that is not a sincere America First ally. He said my views are out of step with where the proper Israel-critical America First side is. He said, and the only reason that could be is because I'm an inauthentic, inorganic voice. And of course, I retaliated. I did then a 3-hour show, and I turned it around. And I said, well, I question whether you and people like Joe are sincere America First people. And if you're insinuating that I'm inorganic, well, I think there's a big story on your side about maybe why you're not organic. We could speculate and we could draw conclusions about that. And it was one of the biggest shows I've ever done. I get people telling me all the time, talking to me all the time about that show. It was one of the most popular, universally, critically acclaimed shows that I've done. And so this set the stage for the show that happened last night. I'm sure you're all familiar with the big feud, but that's where it came from. And it exploded this summer, really coinciding with my generational run. This summer, it was my coverage of the war in Iran, the so-called 12-day war. It was my debate with Dinesh D'Souza. It was some other viral things that happened, which made my ascendancy unignorable. Tucker took a shot, I retaliated, and I think he didn't expect how badly it would go for him. Now, shortly after that video, shortly after that show that I did about Tucker, this exchange, Tucker reached out to me. He called me on the phone. And I won't say exactly what happened there. I don't want to betray his confidence, but he called me on the phone and we had an amicable conversation. We sort of leveled with each other. And I would say it was cordial, friendly, and civil. And so we talked things out a little bit on the phone. And then his team reached out about a month ago and they said they wanted to bring me on the show. And I went into it really without any real expectation. I had no idea what I was in for. They invited me out at the end of September, beginning of October, to come and do the show. And of course I said yes. And I'm interested in having the conversation because I challenged him in my show about him. I said, well, why don't you just talk to me yourself? If I'm an unknown quantity, if you don't know what I am or what I believe or whether I'm sincere and why I'm launching these attacks, ask me. You're a journalist. Ask me the question. I'd be happy to answer. And I said, I'm not an animal. I don't think I'm a brute. I'm a civil and polite person. I said, and we can make it civil. I said, but give me a fair hearing. Let me tell you in my own words who I am, where I came from, what I'm about. And I think to his credit, and I think everybody on our side, whatever you think of Tucker, and I know a lot of my fans love Tucker, and some of them are very suspicious of Tucker. And I have similarly ambivalent feelings, or I did, let's say. I love a lot of what he's saying and doing, but I'm also wondering, what's this guy's problem with me? And so I'm sure he was curious, and I was curious too. I wanted to meet him and get the measure of the man, and I wanted to hear from him himself. And I'm a man. I wanted to stand up to the questions. So, of course, I leaped at the opportunity. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to do it. And as soon as I could, I flew out, and I had dinner with him on Sunday night. And like I said, I walked in really not knowing what to expect. I'm going to be honest with you, because I'm always honest, sometimes to my detriment. I did believe Tucker was in the CIA. And so part of me was thinking, because they booked my travel, I was thinking, did they put a bomb on the plane to like kill me? Because they like booked my plane ticket. I was thinking, kind of a huge risk. Because look, if I'm sincerely saying that he's an operative, well, so I swear I really went in not knowing what to expect at all. I was thinking, is this plane going to blow up when it takes off? I was thinking, when the driver comes and picks me up, is he going to take me out in the woods and blow my head off? I was also thinking, what if it's a complete ambush? What if he punches me in the face for talking about his family? What if it's a totally hostile line of questioning? What if they pass a bunch of deep fake photos across the table and say, we got you? I was thinking, I sincerely had no idea what to expect. And I know that sounds like a joke, but I'm a paranoid person. And honestly, that was in the back of my mind. But I'm brave. I'm a heroic and courageous person. So I said, well, I'll tell people where I'm going. And I said, if anything happens to me, you tell them what happened here. And that's true. But so I got on the plane, I flew out, and the plane did not explode. Nobody killed me, obviously. I'm still here. And I went up to his place, and we had dinner on Sunday night. And it was very intimate. It was me, him, his producer, and that was it. At the table where we did the interview, and it was extremely friendly. It was extremely nice. But I wouldn't say, as other people are characterizing it, I wouldn't say that he didn't challenge me. He probed me. By probed, I mean he asked me a lot of intense questions. He really spent hours on Sunday night getting to know me. And I spent a lot of time getting to know him. And he asked me about everything. He asked me about what I believe on many different subjects, about things he's heard about me. And I think both of us were maybe measuring the other and sizing the other one up and trying to figure each other out. But it was honest, it was direct, it was straightforward, it was challenging, it was fair. But I think we had a really good, interesting conversation Sunday night. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then I went back to my hotel and I went back out Monday morning to do the show. And with full disclosure, there was nothing like an ambush at all. We did something like a pre-interview. That's how I would characterize it. Sunday night, we walked through many of the topics, and we actually laid out exactly what we would be speaking about Monday morning. Monday, I showed up a half hour before we recorded, and we walked through every single thing we would talk about. And he told me, this is what I'm going to ask you. There were no surprises, no ambush. And I really want to say that because I want to give him a lot of credit for a variety of reasons. But maybe first and foremost, it was fair. And if you watch my show, if you know anything about me, I do very well, actually, in a hostile environment. I've done it before. I've been the subject of an ambush. I've been the subject of a hostile line of questioning. People have been tough. And sometimes I do interviews and people are extremely complimentary and friendly. All I ever ask of anyone is that they hear me out in good faith. That's it. You can ask a tough question, a personal question. You can ask a hostile question. You can disagree strongly. As long as it's in good faith, as long as it's sincere, as long as it's fair, and I could even deal with not very fair. I don't like it, but I could deal with that too. That's all I've ever asked. And to his credit, that's what Tucker did. And I thought that was extremely courageous of him for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, he knows that even just by sitting with me, it doesn't matter what he says. He's going to get destroyed for this. And by that, I don't mean they're going to take him out. He's obviously very resilient and the people love him. But as you've seen over the past 24 hours, people are going to attack him ruthlessly and dishonestly and unfairly. So I think that shows a lot of integrity and a lot of courage that he even sat down and did the show, especially considering we went at it really hard over the summer. So that shows, I think, a lot of character. And in the second place, forget even about the reaction from other people or how his reputation might suffer. I also think it shows a lot of integrity as a public intellectual influencer. I don't know if he'd like either of those words, but I think it shows a lot of integrity that he could have ambushed me. He could have been unfair, and maybe that would have went better for him in terms of public perception, or maybe he could have one-upped me in some way. But he was willing to face a disagreement and not know the answers I was going to give and not know how it would go. And I think that takes some courage also. It takes courage of his convictions to stand up to a sincere and thoughtful and genuine interlocutor. So that's how it went. That was the setup. I will also say, because I've heard this said as well, people said, well, why didn't you talk about these Fed accusations on the show? And to be honest with you, we basically agreed in an unspoken way that this was going to be a show about our actual substantive disagreements. We could have sat down and we could have ripped each other apart and said, you're a Fed. No, you're a Fed. Well, why did you do this? And why'd you do that? We both already did that. And as far as his connections are concerned, it's out there. I did a show about it. As far as suspicions about me, everyone's aware of that. Articles have been written about it. It's out there too. And I think that on this show, we wanted to cover the actual ideas. And that's what we did. We had an actual clash of ideas. We talked about not just the ideological disagreements, but also the political, tactical disagreements. And I think that made for an actual productive conversation. We sat down and we actually had a productive, interesting conversation. We fleshed out our disagreements. What do we think about Israel and the Jews and these things which are so contentious and these things which are so topical? And we also talked about a little bit of our history. You know, he basically said, I got a problem with you. It's that you're only attacking these sincere America First people. Why is that? And I said, well, this is why. This is where I'm coming from. And he said, well, this is where I'm coming from. And I think we actually achieved some level of understanding. And the way that I put it on my show and to him at dinner and on the interview, I think we touched on it at one point, although I'm not sure. It's that to him, I'm an unknown quantity. And to many I am. They only know me from the clips. And we'll get to why that is the case, because I think that's an interesting story by itself, which is worth examining. I am somebody that does not come from the establishment. I don't have a resume. I'm young. I'm newer, new to him maybe. I exist on the internet. And so for a lot of older people, and I don't say that as a dig, but for people that are maybe from a different generation with a different set of ideological priors, from a different media market or medium, let's say, at all. He comes from television. I represent something completely unknown and foreign. And so he doesn't really know. He doesn't really know what I'm about or who I am or anything like that. And I'm sure he regards me with suspicion. And likewise, for someone like myself, I came from America. I came from the working class. My parents are not in politics. I come from Chicago. I come from a city that isn't connected, let's say, in the way that DC and New York and New England are. And from my perspective, also as a younger man, I look at somebody from Fox News coming from the inside, coming from DC, coming from the system. I regard someone like him with suspicion. To me, he is an unknown quantity. He was a neocon. He's not anymore. But is he really not anymore? Or what actually happened? And so I think if we're being charitable, we could say that maybe this was a profound misunderstanding. We have to leave room that this is the case. And that's why I sat down with him to flesh out some of these disagreements and where we agree, where we disagree, what each of us really thinks about the whole situation. And I thought it was a great discussion. I thought it was actually really interesting. It was a real conversation. And I want to get into it a little bit. And first, I want to talk about my backstory. And I'm a little bit tired of saying my backstory at this point. If you watch the show, you've heard it a million times. If you follow me, if you've been following my interviews, you've heard the backstory 100,000 times, which goes something like this. I'm 18, I'm a freshman, I go to Boston University, I do this debate, they start grooming me to join the Daily Wire, and then they find out that I'm not really on board with the pro-Israel dogma. And so my own conservative movement backstabs me. They work with the left, they engage in cancel culture, they engage in censorship themselves, and they systematically blacklist me and tried to destroy my reputation and my career in its infancy, in my crib, because I had the wrong opinion about this one topic. And that's sort of the shocking story, because of course, my reputation for the past 10 years that has been established is that I'm insane, I'm crazy, I'm an extremist, I'm a hate monger, I'm a white supremacist, etc. And they don't know that I was a mainstream conservative from a normal background, a relatively well-adjusted normal kid, popular in high school, all those things. I was even pro-Israel at one point. And what turned me, what changed my mind, I don't like radicalized, what woke me up was not just being the subject of this berserker attack from the pro-Israel crowd and seeing the hypocrisy of how they were willing to undermine the marketplace of ideas and free speech if you went against some particular dogma, but I also recognized what the whole operation was about. And that's what I want to talk about with regard to my backstory, because I want to make it very clear. As I have told my backstory, people are trying to use my story to spin their own narrative. And the narrative goes something like this. Nick Fuentes became the monster because the conservative movement was too intolerant or something like this. They say, how do you get Nick Fuentes, a horrible person? You know, it's like unspoken. How did Nick Fuentes become a monster? You know, Patrick Bet-David, I don't maybe think this was his intention, but he said, how extreme did that make you? Candace Owens said, did that make you hate Jews? Tucker sort of insinuated this. He said, maybe they called you a racist because they wanted you to become a racist. And there's sort of this unspoken assumption that to have my ideology is inherently wrong. Like it should be presumed that the things I have said or say now are inherently monstrous. They're sort of self-evidently evil and wrong. And so the question becomes the making of a killer. How did a student council president, PragerU Force alum, how did a Ben Shapiro fan become the pariah, the worst guy ever? Oh, they treated him poorly and they were a little hypocritical. And I would say that's not actually what happened. Here's the real lesson of my story. It tells you how conservative politics works. Turning Point USA is the largest campus conservative organization in the country. They receive $140 million per year. That's a lot of money. $140 million per year. And they have thousands of chapters. And they invest in speaking events and conventions and leadership summits. And they hold events and they table and all these things. They host debates. Why? Where are they getting that money from? Who's putting up the money and why? Billionaires. Billionaires are putting up the money. Foster Friess, Bernard Marcus from Home Depot, Facebook, Israel, Shillman. They are putting up the money for Turning Point USA. That's who has $140 million to spend on campus activism. Why? Why did they spend all this money? Because properly understood, Turning Point USA, college Republicans, that is the first entry into a pipeline which creates future Fox News correspondents, which creates future Republican staffers, future Republican politicians. If you want to groom people to be loyal to the party in politics, Where do you look? You find the smartest of the youth. And where are the smartest, most capable youth? Relatively speaking, they're in college. Admission or participation in college means you could fill out a college application, you get a certain score on a test. It's rudimentary, but it's a filter. They go to the colleges and they find the 18-year-olds that are in college, and this is where they get them. This is where they start to indoctrinate them. And they start to tell them, you are vaguely conservative. Maybe you're Christian. Maybe you have a cultural or temperamental disposition towards conservatism. Well, you're with us. You're on our team. We claim you. And this is what we believe. We believe in cutting taxes for corporations. We believe in war in the Middle East. We always support Israel. We believe in limited government and deregulating Wall Street. We believe in fossil fuels and energy. So you might be like a 17-year-old that says, I don't really like the way these liberals sound. Then they claim you in college. They table and they solicit you and they say, hey, you're with us and this is what we believe. And I was one of those precocious, look that up if you don't know what that means. I was one of those precocious young students at a selective school, Boston University, that was picked up, groomed into this operation. I was 18, a freshman, and they said, here's a kid that's well-spoken. Here's a kid that's very conservative. He's fighting the left. And they scouted me. Cassie Dillon and the Flying Monkeys at Daily Wire, Aaron Bandler, Elliot Hamilton, they wrote articles about me. They scouted me. And they brought me into their group. And they said, we want to give you a career. They started to work on me. Cassie Dillon took me to get my eyebrows done. She said, we need to get you media trained. She sent my profile to Ben Shapiro and said, you need to mentor him. He's great, but he's too Trumpy. He supports Trump too much. When I started to criticize Israel, they said, whoa, you can't believe that. You're not allowed to say that or believe that. And when it was clear that even though I was America First, conservative, Republican guy, I wasn't willing to follow the dogma to the letter. And so not only did they cut me off, but they tried to destroy me. Because they said, if you go against the dogma, you are going to threaten everything that we've built. So they said, now the pipeline is closed to you. Normally, this is how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to get scouted by Turning Point or Daily Wire or whatever. You're supposed to get scouted, and then you get your first Fox and Friends appearance. You get on the morning show, and they set you up with the producer, and you go downtown, and they set you up behind the camera. Oh, Mom, I'm going to be on Fox, my first big hit. I'm making it. And you call in with Peter Ducey and Brian Kilmeade, and you have your hands in your lap, and you say, hi, I'm a college conservative, and just like Charlie Kirk. That's how Charlie Kirk got started. That's how Cassie Dillon got started. That's how Brylan Hollyhan got started. That's how they all get started. They get a little taste. And then they go into the nonprofit world. They get a job at Daily Caller. They get a job at Leadership Institute. They get a job at a media organ. They get a job on the Hill as a staffer. They get a fellowship. They work at some other think tank, something like that. And they're in the pipeline. The pipeline is flowing. And as long as they're in the pipeline, they have access to CPAC, where they could shake hands and network with donors, with mentors, with older people, with people in funny hats. They get to go to Turning Point. They get to go, and they get to be preyed upon, actually, by patrons and donors and sponsors and groups. It's this big club. But if you're not on board with the dogma, you're not in. But it wasn't enough that they kicked me out. They recognized my potential. They had to destroy me. So they blacklisted me. They banned me from CPAC. Cabot Phillips, son of Tim Phillips, he was at Americans for Prosperity. He founded it, actually. Cabot was at Campus Reform. Now he's the editor-in-chief at Daily Wire. People like him, Cassie, Hamilton, Bandler, Will Nardi, They all tried to destroy my reputation. They sent clips of mine to Media Matters. It wasn't enough that they disassociate. They wanted to make it so that everyone knew that I was wearing the scarlet letter. They wanted everyone to know, don't hire this guy. He's not in the club. He's not in the pipeline. He's on the blacklist. Why? Because he doesn't support Israel. Now, that didn't make me become anything. I already had those beliefs. I was already reading Pat Buchanan. I was already against immigration. I was already critical of Israel. And by the way, those were all Donald Trump's positions. They didn't make me become anything. They made my reputation something. They took my worst moments, whether they were jokes or not, whatever the context, they clipped the worst moments from my show and they sent them to Right Wing Watch, Media Matters. That's why I say, why do people know me by the clips? That was their intention. People say, once they watch my show, they say, why don't you say that all the time? I do. I've been saying mostly the same thing for 10 years. The fundamentals have not changed. It's uncanny. If you look at clips, and you can access my whole archive at americafirst.plus, if you go back 10 years, you can find shows from 2017, 2018. I'm saying it's almost scary, the same things. But they took the clips, and the right had a handshake with the left, and they said, we will use cancel culture about racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. We will use it to control the gates of our own side. We'll use it expediently. We'll wage the left against the far right, and we'll have the left destroy the far right and cleanse them and purge them. And so nonprofits like Media Matters, Right Wing Watch, they get tons of money. And they get tons of money to watch people like me, when I'm 18, 19, clip my show, post it on their giant social media. And this is how an 18-year-old who is just saying America first gets branded as the worst person ever. I'm not a monster. I didn't become a monster. I wasn't radicalized. I'm not radical. What I said then was not radical then. What I say now is not radical. What did I say then that was radical? That we give too much money to Israel? How's that radical? That maybe the entire United States should not live in the shadow of the Holocaust? I know that sounds controversial. Is that radical? I don't think so. Is it radical to say that it's not a good thing for America to become majority non-white? That's common sense. Look at LA, look at New York. Have they gotten better or worse as they have become progressively less white? These are not radical beliefs. And I never became a radical. I never was radical. I'm not radical now. And if you want to position me against the mainstream, which is horrible, then fine. I'm radically against mass migration. I'm radically against feminism. I'm radically against degeneracy. I'm radically against pornography. I'm radically against giving all our money to Israel and all the wars we fought for them. In that context, I'm a radical. And in the other context, I'm common sense. So I don't like this making of a murderer narrative where they say this poor kid was viciously attacked and it made him a terrible person. No, I'm not a terrible person. They are terrible people. They're part of this. They created this situation and they uphold it with lies. They uphold it with lies and deception, cancel culture, gossip, detraction. That's evil. That's messed up. Not the jokes I say on the show, not the things I say on the show that could be taken out of context. It's messed up that Right Wing Watch is being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by George Soros, a billionaire, to clip an 18-year-old show. Because anybody that expresses any discontent about the state of affairs, they want to vilify. That's messed up. That's evil. And it's evil the conservatives were willing to work with those people. And here's another case in point. After my discussion with Tucker Carlson, Mark Levin was very unhappy about it. You know what Mark Levin did about my interview with Tucker Carlson? What they always do. He tried to destroy my reputation today by posting an article from the Daily Beast. And the Daily Beast did an article about how I was critical of Erica Kirk, something that's controversial. He posted an article from the Daily Beast. They're still doing it. And what is that, by the way? Did Mark Levin, this super wealthy, super influential, the guy's 3 times my age, did he rebut anything I said in the interview? Does he want to talk to me? Is sunlight the best disinfectant now? Does he want to expose my views now? No, he doesn't address anything I've said. He doesn't address anything in the interview or my views, which are so reprehensible. It's more reputational destruction with the left. That's what they've always done. And that's how they control politics. These other people are unaccountable. No one's watching. No one's clip farming them. There's not a glossary of every evil thing they've ever said because no nonprofit is there collecting it to form a political attack against them. It's not there. It's not because they've never said anything bad. We've all said bad things in public and private. We've all said things that could be taken out of context in public and private. It's just whose reputation is defined by those clips. It's those people that are targeted. It's people that are targeted by billionaire-funded nonprofits that make reputational destruction a political tool for political control. That's what happened there. So there's a story about how our political system comes to be. Why is it that we only get pro-Israel voices? Why is it that we only get billionaire-friendly choices? It's because that pipeline is constantly being refined. And the second you step out of line and you go against the interests of the Israeli billionaires, the Wall Street billionaires, the Silicon Valley billionaires that fund this operation, you are culled. You are filtered. That's enough, Mr. Fuentes. No more. We don't want to hear from you anymore. And as a matter of fact, you're not conservative at all. You're evil. Why is it that it's filled with sycophants? I don't think that these sycophants get a script from Fox News, but no one's working at Fox News that goes off the script. Same goes for the rest of it. That's the real story. And so anyway, that's where I came from. And that is the origin. And what happened ever since then, by the way, in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, for 4 or 5 years of my life, and I'm not playing the victim, I was the victim here. And you be the judge and tell me if this is a legitimate grievance. I was banned from PayPal. I was banned from Bank of America. I was banned from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I was banned from American Airlines. I was banned from Airbnb. I was banned from CPAC. There was a systematic effort to get me to go away. How? By making sure that my views couldn't reach anybody. No one could find my show. No one could hear me in my own words. The clips would define me. They ban you from Twitter, and then they say, oh, we have Twitter still. This is who he is. Why did they take me off of PayPal? So that I can't make a living. Even if I could find a small audience that will give me a hearing, I can't make a living off of it because I literally can't transact on the internet. I can't sell merch, subscriptions, anything. I can't take donations. How else do they do it? If I can't use Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, well, maybe I'll go on some other show and I'll get an audience that way. Well, I was blacklisted. Everybody was afraid to have me on their show because they knew that if they had me on their show, they would get the same treatment that I did. They would lose their sponsors and their ad revenue. They would get banned on the social platforms. They would get fired from their jobs. They would be cast out. And all of them knew that they could not make it independently. They were dependent on the patronage of the system. And so I was in limbo for years. Why? Well, there were really like 2 specific things. The first is that I was never on board with mass migration. I'm a race realist. I believe that race is real. I believe that America is a white country. Whites explored it, founded America as well, built America, and only whites could have done it. I believe that everything about America, its architecture, its constitution, its political and social culture, all of it, it proceeds from European character. It is essentially European. And if any other people landed on this continent and created a country, it would not look like the United States. If the Chinese set up a colony in California, it wouldn't look like America. If the Aztecs did, and they were here, it wouldn't look like the United States. And the same goes for the other peoples. And now that America is becoming majority non-white, America's changing in fundamental ways. And I know that sounds obvious. Maybe it's obvious now. Maybe it was obvious then. But this means something. America was mostly white, almost entirely white, actually. And now it's going to be mostly not white. And everyone thinks things are basically going to stay the same, but they're not. Things are going to change a lot. And they're going to change because it's different people. You have non-whites instead of whites, and it's going to change because there's so much diversity. There's so many different kinds of people, all living together in large numbers in these sort of ethnic enclaves. So the diversity inherently, but also the inherent differences of the people that are here, it's going to make things a lot different, and in my opinion, a lot worse. I think diversity in itself is destabilizing. To have large groups of different people in an open democratic society fighting over the same resources, I think it naturally breeds resentment, tribalism, jealousy, and ultimately conflict. But I also think the people that are being brought here, I think they have inferior cultures. I think they have objectively inferior countries. They're leaving those countries to come here because this country works better. And you tell me that's not the case. Was Los Angeles better in the 60s and 70s, or is it better now? Was New York City better in the 30s and 40s, or is it better now? The country's not going well. And 10 years ago, this was something that was cancelable. Charlie Kirk in 2019 said, we need 10 million legal immigrants. We need to staple green cards to their diplomas. To say that being white means being American is evil. He said, if you went to a desert island with all non-white people and had the Constitution, that's America. And you were canceled if you disagreed with this. The second opinion is I recognize there was something going on with this Judeo-Christian thing. We were being told at the same time, in Turning Point, in the Republican Party, we were being told that to be conservative means limited government, low taxes, individualism, gun rights, Christianity. And you're nodding and saying, okay, I agree with these things. We were always being told that like the fifth or sixth pillar is we always support Israel. That's like something's not like the other here. And you say, well, why is that? Well, someone's paying for that. They say, we're Judeo-Christian. I said, how does that make any sense? What is a Christian? It's Christ. If you're a Christian, you're a Christ follower. Who was Christ? God, the Messiah, died on the cross, rose again because he was God. The power to save because he is God. What is a Jew? It's those people that rejected this claim. If a Christian is a Jew 2,000 years ago who said, I worship Christ, he's God, I follow him, then what is a Jew 2,000 years later? It's one of those Jews that said, I do not accept Christ. So that seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Rejection of Christ defining the one and embrace of Christ being the definition of the other. I said, so where is this coming from? Oh, it's coming from money. Oh, there seems to be this super powerful clique of oligarchs and donors and billionaires distributed across the American elite that are subsidizing the conservative movement. Call it AIPAC, call it Rupert Murdoch, call it Sheldon Adelson, but they're pouring money in to make this a plank, and this represents a special interest. This is obvious now. Everything that I am saying is now obvious. Everything I am saying is now irrefutable. It's undeniable. Everything I am saying about race and immigration, everyone knows it. By the way, even the non-white people know that. That's why I have so many black and Hispanic fans, because even they know it. Some people say, I'm Mexican and not white. Okay, I know it too. And about Israel, everyone knows that now. Everyone knows on some level what's happening with Jews in Israel. And now, because of certain developments, we can think that, we can say that, and many people believe that. But 10 years ago, 5 years ago, none of these things were acceptable, least of all in conservative spaces. If you said these things, you were censored. Ever heard of Jared Taylor? He was one of the first to be banned. Ever heard of Andrew Anglin? Ever heard of any of these people? And I'm not going to go through the entire list. Kevin McDonald. These people were banned for saying these things from social media. They were never debated. Their ideas were never given a fair hearing. And the right wing wanted nothing to do with them. Here's why I'm saying all this. My reality for years is that I was effectively punished for being right. I didn't get radicalized. I didn't become a monster. I was right, and I was right first. I was right before it was popular. I was right before you could benefit from it. And I suffered enormously for this. My career did not take off. I didn't make money. I was ostracized by my friends. I was lied about constantly. I was treated like a leper, like a pariah. And so I fought with a lot of people like Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh told me I was a horrible racist. I was on the side of genocidal white supremacists. Benny Johnson made a whole thread calling me a racist, a sexist. It's going viral today. Benny Johnson from Turning Point. Charlie Kirk said I was a Holocaust denier and a racist vermin, he said recently. All of these people on the conservative side attacked me ruthlessly, or they were complicit in my censorship and cancellation for my ideas. They were either actively canceling me, actively spreading rumors and shutting me down, or they were complicit because they did nothing to help me, nothing to platform me. They didn't give me a fair hearing. They didn't defend me. Well, now it's 2025. And now none of that is the case any longer. Censorship is no longer a factor. Elon Musk acquired X in 2022. By 2024, it was completely free speech. TikTok seems to have less moderation than any social platform, and it exploded in 22, 23. Not only has censorship subsided, but also cancel culture seems to have gone away too. And now there are major people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, others who are speaking out about these things. So times have genuinely changed. And now a lot of people agree with me. And maybe they don't agree fully or completely. They certainly agree that views like mine should be allowed to be said. That's for starters. Some of them even believe that these ideas have some merit or that they should have a fair hearing. And many people have just embraced these ideas outright. But what's really interesting is after this long journey, everybody has moved closer to me. The Republican Party is now the Groyper Party. Politicians like J.D. Vance, they need to pander to the Groypers. When J.D. Vance went to Israel and he went to the church instead of the wall, who do you think that was pandering to? The biggest media entities on the right are Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, and they all have one thing in common. They're all Israel critical. People know where the audience is. And whether they're sincere believers or they're following where the wind is blowing, that's where it is. I was right. And not only was I right, I was ahead of the curve. But I got canceled for it. And what's interesting is that after 10 years, now people want to treat me like I was just being a jerk. They say, why did you attack Matt Walsh? Because Matt Walsh was saying that Ahmaud Arbery was just jogging through the neighborhood, and he still works for Ben Shapiro. They say, why did you attack Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because she sold out to Kevin McCarthy in 2022, let's not forget. And she also acted like she didn't know me. She fired one of her employees, a Groyper, because the SPLC gave her a phone call. So it's interesting, isn't it? 10 years after the fact, now that everybody's on my side, now that everybody's on the same page, they want to say, oh, well, you were just being a jerk back then. No, I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't radicalized. I'm not a monster. I wasn't a monster, and I wasn't a jerk. You all were wrong, and I was calling all of you out. Why did I have beef with Charlie Kirk? He fired Ashley St. Clair for being in a picture with me. That's cancel culture. Because he was going on his campus tour saying we need 10 million H-1B visas. He was on tour saying Israel's our closest ally. And if it came down to Israel and America, I don't know which one I would pick. That's why I had beef with him. And in response to my critiques of him, he called me a Holocaust denier and tried to get me banned with clips from the ADL and Media Matters. My YouTube channel got banned 3 months after that Groyper war. So it is a new year. It is a new era. And I'm not here just to complain. I'm not here just griping and complaining. I hope this doesn't sound like whining. I'm saying that it's interesting that after everybody knows what happened to me, which is that I got canceled for telling the truth about these things. I was red-pilled. I was the tip of the spear. I was right. Everyone's joining up with me now. Now everybody wants to keep me canceled. They took all my talking points. They agree with all my views now, but they still want to justify that they were complicit, that they were wrong, that I'm still canceled. And all I'm saying is, after all this time is, let's just acknowledge what actually took place. And I'm willing to be gracious, and I'm willing to be magnanimous, like I was with Tucker Carlson, like I have been with other people who I have had problems with in the past. But let's not pretend like I was the problem. They were the problem. I was right about immigration and race in Israel. They were wrong. And that's why I was canceled. Not because I was mean, not because I was a monster, not because I'm hard to get along with. I'm very easy to get along with. If you watch these interviews, I'm nothing but friendly. I'm nothing but polite and respectful. I wait for people to finish. I think I tailor my message to my audience well. Let's just be honest. I was right. You all were wrong. That's why there was beef. And now that you're all on my side, I am willing to let it go. It's a new year. It's 2025. I have a platform on X. I am no longer the moral entrepreneur, in the words of Overton, yelling outside of the system with a small and rabid audience. I now have 1 million followers on Twitter. I have now been on the major platforms. I recognize things have changed. The media ecosystem has changed. The conversation has changed. We have free speech. We're able to make a living. There is a general climate of free expression. These views are not only acceptable, but becoming popular. And now I am no longer the radical on the outside. I'm actually the leader on the inside. I'm considered the one, perhaps, with the most credibility, because everybody witnessed it and everyone on some level was a party to it in politics. Whether you're on this side of the screen or this side of the screen, whether you're in politics or outside, everybody knows that. And now that I am a leader, this is what I want to do with my platform and with my audience and with my message. Now I am extremely serious about realizing America first. That's what this was always about. Fundamentally, the way that Shapiro changed my mind is that he made it apparent that there's a fundamental contradiction between an America first worldview and the people that are currently controlling the GOP. Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, they can never say America first because they don't believe it, because they are Israel first. They're putting the Jewish nation first. And that has a lot to do with who they are. That has a lot to do with them being Jewish. As a Jewish people, they are deeply sympathetic to the Jewish state. And as long as America is not doing the bidding of Israel, they're going to have a problem with putting America's interests first. Now, how do we translate that into reality? We're witnessing this catastrophic failure of the Trump administration. Clearly, he is not realizing an America first foreign policy. Have we withdrawn from a single war under Trump? The answer is no. He did not withdraw us from Afghanistan. Biden did. He did not withdraw us from Iraq or Syria or Somalia or any of these countries. As a matter of fact, he wants to get in more wars. He bombed Iran, and he wants to get us back in Afghanistan. It's almost inexplicable. Now, a year ago, the new track is everybody said I'm a Democrat because I said I don't want to vote for Trump. I don't think that makes me a Democrat. I think that makes me an America First Republican. And America First Republicans cannot vote for regular Republicans that don't put America first. Are you serious about realizing America first, or are you just paying lip service to it? Do you want things to change? Do you believe fundamentally that things should change? Are you serious about that? Or are you content to let the country continue fighting Israel's wars and then complain about it on Twitter? Campaign for Trump, vote for Trump, and then throw your arms up and act exasperated when he brings us to war in Iran. This is why I say that in 2028, I'm an undecided voter. I'm not going to vote for J.D. Vance. I'm not necessarily going to vote Republican. I doubt I'll vote Democrat. I'm undecided. And I'm undecided because now that I am a leader in the movement, now that I have an audience, now that everybody's listening, we have to take this to the next level and say, I don't want to be told, oh, poor guy, you were attacked, now you are a bitter hater. No, I was right, and I am here to claim my prize. And my prize is that I influence a lot of young conservative men that the GOP needs, that they know they need to win an election. And I don't say this out of bitterness, and I don't say this for any personal reasons. I will not vote for Republicans. I will not deliver my audience to vote for Republicans if Republicans don't put America first. And if Republicans lose because they're not willing to do that, I am perfectly happy to allow them to do that to themselves. But don't blame me. Blame yourselves. If you lost a generation of extremely conservative young men that were eager and willing to vote for a conservative Republican president, if you lost them because you could not stop humiliating them, insulting them, betraying them, selling them out, ruthlessly doxing them and attacking them, exposing their group chats, Ben Shapiro wants to extract an apology from them, you have nobody but yourself to blame. Don't put that on me. They say, if the young white people, if the young conservatives don't vote, we're giving it to the Democrats. Let's start the conversation a different way. What are you going to do for us? You've been getting it wrong for generations. You wrecked my generation. How many years have Republicans controlled Congress? How many years have Republicans controlled the White House? I was born in 1998. How many years since then have Republicans had power? And what have they done about free trade, which took all the jobs, pornography and feminism, which made marriage impossible? What have they done about the open borders? They're literally taking our birthright. They're literally taking our neighborhoods one at a time and transforming them into foreign enclaves and foreign countries. They removed everything. They took everything from us. And now they say, if you don't go out and vote for more of it, you made us lose. There's no us. We are America First. You are the Republican Party. If you want America First to be a part of your coalition, then you better do something for us. Start putting America first. Start fighting for your own constituents. We are the future. We are the Americans. Put us first. And anyone that supports this message, I am willing to unite with. J.D. Vance, what can you do for us? Marco Rubio, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, any of them, Gavin Newsom, what can you do for us? That's how this works. You work for us. This is a government of, by, and for the people, not a government of, by, and for our group, which is doing some political thing, and you better get in line or get out. I don't think so. And I'm the only one that can say that because I'm the only truly organic force. My audience came from cozy.tv and DLive. My audience came from Instagram Reels. It didn't come from Daily Wire. It didn't come from the establishment. So that's where this needs to go in the future. And let's talk a little bit about Joe Kent and J.D. Vance, because substantively, this is what Tucker challenged me on. He said, why do you only attack sincere America First conservatives like me, Vance, and Joe Kent? And I would say that in the first place, as I said before, they attack me first. Joe Kent said that I talk too much about race and religion. More specifically, he said I talk too much about white people and Christianity. I talk too much about white people and Christianity? Who's talking about white people and Christianity? Nobody. Everybody's talked about black unemployment, women, Hispanics. They pander to every group other than whites. And all we hear about is Diwali and India and, of course, Shabbat and Israel and synagogues and Jewish people. We never hear about Christ. We hear about God. We never hear about Christ. We never hear about Christians. When has that ever been the focal point? This is your sincere America First conservative? He said, you talk too much about white people and Christians. I know. It's shocking, isn't it? It's actually nice for a change, I thought. He said, you talk too much about race and religion. He said, and I condemn your views on Israel. Well, you know what? That doesn't sound very America First to me. That doesn't sound like real America First at all. Don't talk about white people, don't talk about Christians, and don't criticize Israel. Other than that, we're America First. Well, what is America to you if it's not a white Christian nation that needs to separate from Israel as soon as possible? I don't know what else you mean by that. He says that doesn't fit with my message of inclusive populism. Inclusive populism, what is that? Communism? What is populism? What's popular, what the people support, and it's inclusive? That's like another word for gay race communism. What is that exactly? Inclusive populism? How's that any different than like Obama's coalition? It's the same thing. So in the first place, I was attacked, but maybe deeper than that. It's not just me saying I was attacked, now I attack back. Let's make one thing very clear. I made it my mission 10 years ago to set the standard. That's why my show is called America First. This is the immovable standard. I question anybody who says they're sincerely America First if they don't talk about white people and how our country went from white to non-white, because that's important. Our country came from Europe. And people say it's a nation of immigrants. Yes, a nation of European immigrants. And before that, a nation of European colonists and pioneers and explorers and conquerors. That's who came before any of the immigrants, even the European ones. So you need to talk about that. You also need to talk about Christianity. This is also a Christian nation. Most of the colonies at the founding of the country had state churches. It was considered at the time of the founding that there should actually be a law that said you have to be a Christian to be elected to government. This is a nation that, by the way, was settled, fought for, built by Christians. I don't care that Thomas Jefferson was a heretic. The people that built the country, the colonies, the states, the laws, it all proceeds from Christianity. It proceeds from Christian civilization. They were all Christian. So I don't want to hear about ethical monotheism. I don't want to hear about Judeo-Christianity, and I don't want to hear about Diwali. I want to hear about Jesus Christ. That's America First to me. And for people that would say, why do you always talk about the Jews, the Jews, the Jews? Because in the context of America First, they seem to be the oligarchs that are ideologically unwilling to put America first. What else would you say when Larry Ellison, the second richest man in the world, buys TikTok and CBS to make them more pro-Israel? What else would you call that? And he puts Bari Weiss in charge of 60 Minutes and the rest of the CBS News lineup so that it's more pro-Israel. What else would you call it when Miriam Adelson is on the phone with Trump? She visits the White House more than anybody. She can't say if she's more loyal to America or Israel. Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, future head of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, he's working with Bill Ackman to blacklist anyone that criticized Israel from working on Wall Street. What else would you call it? It just so happens that we don't have a general problem with putting America last. We have a particular problem. And that particular problem is that organized Jewry in America is too powerful. Not every single Jew out there, but Jewish people are extremely organized. They have federations and congresses and the ADL and B'nai B'rith and fraternities. They're very organized. And they're organized on the basis of their Jewish identity. Jewish cultural centers, schools, fraternities, Zionist forums and congresses and associations, Jewish congresses, associations, Anti-Defamation League. And on the basis of that ethnicity, they act extremely tribalistic. And this is why they're frequently putting Israel or the benefit of Jewish people broadly ahead of America. We have to talk about this particular issue. Not in a hateful way, not in an ignorant way, not with cruelty or any other kind of emotion or prejudice, but sticking strictly to the facts and the overriding principle, which is America first. So if you want to talk to me about sincere America First conservatism, that's what I want to hear about. If I'm attacking sincere America First conservatives, show me where they're pro-white, pro-Christian, where they're actually willing to dissent against Jewish oligarchs and the Israel lobby, and I will stand down and unite and work with them. But as long as they are making excuses, as long as they are cucking out, then I can't say I can unite with them. I look at somebody like Matt Walsh as a very good example. Matt Walsh has been calling for unity on the right. He wants the right to unify, but he works for Ben Shapiro. So how can he ever call himself America First? And how could I unite with somebody that's working under somebody that epitomizes Israel first? We can't do it. We have to ask for more. We have to raise the standards. We have to ask for people to do better. It's not enough. Trump is not enough. Matt Walsh is not enough. All of this stuff is not enough. Clearly, it's not enough. And we can't be bashful about saying that. Are the other people ever bashful about their wants? Is Mark Levin bashful about what he wants for the country? Absolutely not. But we are. It's not enough when you work for Ben Shapiro. It's not enough when you bomb Iran. This is where things need to go. The last thing I want to get into is some of the reaction, which is a little bit funny, and this is notable. So, of course, a lot of people love the interview, and the video on YouTube has been blowing up. It's got almost 3 million views. The ratio of likes to dislikes is like 99%. The comments are all positive. Everybody loved it. But it's interesting because the media is only spotlighting some of the negative pushback, the negative feedback. And all the negative feedback comes from the $7,000 Club. The $7,000 Club and their group chat was all over Twitter today. All of them, Seth Dillon and Will Chamberlain and Mark Levin and Josh Hammer, Andrew Klavan. The reviews were in. The $7,000 Club was not happy. The group chat was not amused, and they were all extremely negative about it. None of them actually addressed what was in the interview, though. They just said that Tucker shouldn't have platformed me, that he was glazing me, that he didn't contest anything that I say. Why didn't he bring up this or that or some other thing? I even saw some Christians say that. I saw some fat doofus say, why didn't he bring up some other things to challenge him? Number one Shabbos Goy award, number one Shabbos Goy department. I saw a lot of this. But there was one thing in particular that really stood out to me. Dave Rubin and Josh Hammer and Dinesh D'Souza, they all said that Tucker Carlson having me on his show was dishonoring Charlie Kirk. These are the people that are claiming I'm a monster. Dave Rubin, by the way, his entire shtick is free speech. I'm not a leftist, I'm a liberal. Okay, what does it mean to be a liberal, Dave? I thought it meant that we have open discussions, open conversations, we talk about ideas. Isn't that Dave Rubin's claim to fame? He's an idiot. That's the only thing he's ever said in 10 years is, don't burn this book, we should be able to talk. And Dave Rubin said, if you host Nick Fuentes, you're dishonoring Charlie Kirk. So now Dave Rubin is literally standing on the grave of a man who died a month ago. Literally standing on his casket and using the ghost of Charlie Kirk, a man who was brutally executed, to say, it's what Charlie would have wanted. Charlie would have wanted you not to platform Nick Fuentes. Wait a second. I thought Charlie Kirk, I thought his big claim to fame is that he debated anybody. Isn't that the case? That he had the microphone and passed it to everybody that had a question that disagreed. Isn't that the great tradition? Now Charlie Kirk's legacy is you need to shut it down. Now you're going to stand on the grave of Charlie Kirk and say, if you talk to Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk hates you from beyond the grave? Shame on you. Shame on you, Dave Rubin, Josh Hammer. You are disgusting. Josh Hammer, you are disgusting. Take your Israeli wife and take your Israeli kids and get out of my country. The least you could say about Charlie Kirk is that he was an American. And he did love America. Whatever our disagreements, and we never got along, but he was American. Josh Hammer, he seems to hate Europeans on a blood level. He says Europeans are anti-Semitic in their DNA. On a genetic level, he hates you. Josh Hammer, take your Israeli family and go home. And I would say the same to Dave Rubin. Go back to Hebrew University where you graduated. Because clearly you don't get it. You don't get the First Amendment. You don't get America. You don't get Charlie Kirk. Shame on you. You people are disgusting. Dave Rubin, in more ways than one, you are disgusting. And ask yourself this. Dave Rubin, who is a hypocrite, a censor, who adopted children as a gay man through surrogacy and deprived them of their mother, who is clearly more loyal to Israel than America, put him next to me any day of the week. Who's the radical? Who's disgusting? Who's the monster? Whose side are you on? Matt Walsh, whose side are you on? There's a war going on out there. You're going to need to take a side. You either get the excesses of Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, or you get Dave Rubin and the excesses of that whole scene. Which do you support? We don't have the luxury of being choosy. We don't have the luxury of being picky. The country's going to go one way or the other. Is it going to go the way of Ben Shapiro? I don't give a damn about the browning of America. Real quote. Ben Shapiro, we need more dead Americans for Israel. Dave Rubin, censor anybody against Israel, deprive children of their mothers. Which direction are we going in? Are we going back towards pro-white, pro-Christian, America first? Not Judeo-Christian, not America plus its 51st state, but America in the tradition of Greece, Rome, Spain, England, Germany, Russia, Portugal, the Dutch. Are we going to be that European empire? Are we going to be a Christian republic? Are we going to be a colony, a vassal? Are we going to be the host nation for this alien force sitting on top of it, extracting its resources, drawing its blood? That's a decision for everyone. But I would add something to that. Not only did they stand on the grave of Charlie Kirk, but Dinesh D'Souza actually published Charlie Kirk's texts, which are really interesting. I'll pull them up for you. Dinesh D'Souza tweeted this morning, he said, I'm posting 2 text exchanges with Charlie Kirk where he calls Nick Fuentes vermin. and insists even my debating him and defeating his arguments amplifies him. One can only imagine what Charlie would say about Tucker's interview with Fuentes. These are the texts. Charlie writes to Dinesh in July, or June, I think it was. Charlie Kirk says about me and Dinesh D'Souza's debate, this was a massive mistake that you did this. He's vermin, and you just gave him one of the biggest boosts of his career. This is about me. Charlie says, you have no idea the damage you did by talking to him and complimenting him. You are making him even bigger. We've been fighting this guy for 6 years. And you are the first mainstream voice to debate and give him a compliment, which then makes him bigger and more powerful. That's Charlie Kirk. Which is very interesting. Because the legacy of Charlie Kirk is open discussion, Q&A. He'll debate anybody. That's what makes America great, free speech. Not for me. For the left. Free speech and debate and engagement in a marketplace of ideas for the left. The left, which shot him in the face and then celebrated it. Is there not a lesson in this? And look, Charlie Kirk is dead. I don't want to speak ill of him in his death. This is what he believed when he was alive. We never got along. We never agreed on anything. He did suppress me actively, and this is the evidence. This shows that he was acutely aware of my potential, my significance, the significance of my ideas and what would happen if my ideas gained traction. He was acutely aware of our feud. He said we've been fighting him for 6 years, suppressing him. He was working behind the scenes to prevent people from talking to me, to literally deprive me of influence, saying, we need to all work together to keep him out of the conversation because if we let him in, he will become very powerful, and that's no good. All I will say about that is this. There is a deep lesson that for all this time, Charlie Kirk thought his enemy was the Groypers. The Groypers were vermin. The Groypers had to be suppressed by any means. The Groypers and Nick Fuentes and America First had to be kept outside the gate. They had to be destroyed. They were too extreme, too far right, he said. But the left, he would debate, he would engage with in a cordial way, in a friendly way, hand them the microphone, he would film with them. And what this says, one, is that engaging with the left is actually not threatening. He really didn't fear the left. He thought the left was safe enough and, you could argue, acceptable enough to tolerate. They could be platformed. They could share the stage. They could be reasoned with. But the far right could not. The far right is the real danger. The far right is the real threat. Well, Charlie Kirk was not killed by the Groypers. He was not killed by the vermin Nick Fuentes. He was not killed by the far right. The far right wanted to debate him. We wanted to defeat his ideas. We wanted to shake hands in the beginning, talk about it, and then shake hands at the end. We wanted to talk. Ultimately, we wanted him on our side. We wanted to change his mind. The left, which he platformed and engaged with, shot him and then celebrated. They danced. They made jokes. They're dressing up in Halloween costumes, mocking him as we speak. They wish death on his wife and kids. Whether Charlie Kirk saw it this way or not, we will finish what he could not, what he cannot, because he was murdered. Whether he likes it or not, whether he liked it when he was alive or not, we have to take it from here. The far right actually has to take it from here. The moderate right that would do anything in their power to prevent the real right, the real America First from rising up. You see where that has gotten us. You see where that got him. And I don't say that to be cute. I say that because that's the reality. The moderate conservatism got him killed. The moderate conservatism got us BLM raging through the streets while Trump was the president. It's giving us this dynamic. We need to fight to win. We can't fight not to lose against the left. We need to fight to win. We need to crush the establishment. And then once we take over the Republican opposition, we need to crush the left. And anything short of that, this country is over. What this country needs is to close the borders. It needs re-migration. These people gotta go. 10 million in 4 years? They're here forever? I don't think so. They have to be removed. And the left-wing scum that are standing in the way of law enforcement, they need to be imprisoned for a long time. The insurrection needs to be put down. Order needs to be restored. And these billionaire oligarchs, the money power, which is inciting this civil conflict in the media with politics, the special interests preventing the government from doing what is necessary, they need to understand that the country comes first. The national power must supersede the money power. The national power that comes from the people and their benefit and the public interest has to take priority over the special interest that is financed by Wall Street, by Silicon Valley, by venture capital, private equity. The national power must take precedence over the money power. Anything short of that, and this country is dead. This country is finished, and everyone knows that. If things keep going the way they are, more diversity, more crime, more chaos, rising costs, more corruption, more bribery, more money for Israel, no money for healthcare, no money for the people, taking away all the food stamps, taking away Medicaid. The country is going to explode, and then it is going to come apart, and then it is going to be shit, and it is going to die. We got one last chance here. And the rallying cry has to be America first. Real, sincere America first. Not inclusive populism, not ethical monotheism, not multiracial working class populism, not colorblind meritocracy. America first. Real, authentic America first. Real Americans from the real America putting the country first. That's it. That's what it's always been. So now the censorship's over, the conversation's wide open, and now we're in the game. Now we have a seat at the table, and I open it up, and I will be solicitous here, and I will say, any past beef, anybody that, look, if you didn't know the score over the last 10 years, and you tried to mess with me, I will grant clemency. And by that, I mean I will be gracious. Anybody that wants to unite for the sake of America first, it might be uncomfortable, it might be awkward. There's going to be a lot of water under the bridge, but I'll unite with anybody that will put America first. I'm open to that. I'm open to conversations. I'm open to debates. I'm open to alliances. I'm open to working together, squashing past beefs, forging new alliances, even if it's, like I said, maybe we don't agree 100%. That's how it has to be. And I'm willing to work with other people. I didn't get to be ostracized because I was a bad guy. I got ostracized because I was ahead of the curve. And if people are coming around now, if people are getting on the right side of history, I welcome them. I welcome them with open arms. And I would say we have a really good shot at winning. We have a positive vision. We want to put America first. We don't want to hurt anybody. We want justice. We want what's right. We want what's ours. And I think that if people follow their conscience and do the right thing, we have a chance at saving the country. But if people are still working for Ben Shapiro, if people are still being petty, people are still qualifying every word, people are still playing it safe, making it about Republicans and Democrats, it won't happen. We have to get serious. So that's my message. That's my recap, me and Tucker Carlson, and that extends to him as well. I had a great conversation with him. Really fabulous conversation with him. I really liked him. Like I said, he was fair, he was honest, challenging, but honest and direct. And I thought we had an extremely productive conversation, and I hope that's a model. We had a very contentious back and forth. He reached out to me. He was very gracious. We squashed it. We did the show. We still don't agree on everything, but we talked it through, and we agree enough that we both want to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. And that's what matters. And I hope everybody can take that, or whatever you think of me personally, politically, I hope people can put that aside and figure out we got a country to save. We have to realize the vision that Trump and his movement have not been able to. But that's that. We're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say. I'm very curious to hear your feedback.
All right, let's get right to it, man. This is a monumental moment. Monumental moment. And this was a very interesting debate, conversation. I wouldn't call it a debate, actually, just a conversation, not a debate at all. Nice exchange of ideas, getting to the root of why Tucker and Nick have had so many issues. And it was like to me, it was like a high stakes, like very highly skilled back and forth. You know, I don't know if y'all watch boxing or MMA. You know, you have some fighters that just get in there and brawl. There's not as much skill involved. But then you got the others, like, let's say, a Floyd Mayweather, who's just a technician. And these two are such at a high level. At a high level, it's exactly what Nick said. It was a feeling out process. And you could see that happening as they were being interviewed because you know what they're both worried about deep down, or they both see the opportunity. It's the opportunity to take the other's audience. Even though they had a very respectful conversation, there's a lot of people on Nick's side that can't stand Tucker based on certain things that he's done to Nick. And there's a lot of people on Tucker's side that can't stand Nick. So it was one of those situations where they really, when you think about it, they appeal to the very same person, however, just at different ages. So Tucker's going to appeal to a lot of the people that have the same concerns that Nick has, but it's just going to be an older crowd, typically. All right. More the crowd that got pissed off maybe at Fox or appreciates Tucker so much to where they came over to his network after he got fired from Fox, against the establishment, against us giving so much money, foreign aid to Israel, or maybe even other countries, maybe even getting involved in a lot of these other countries. That's his crowd. Now, Nick, who kind of, you know, Nick sometimes says he's not with us getting involved in certain foreign affairs. He's definitely against us when it comes to Israel having such a big influence on our government and our politicians. However, Nick has opened the door for Venezuela and Argentina and what those regime changes would look like and how they could potentially help out America. And he also, I believe, said maybe in a previous episode that he would entertain, I think last week, that he would entertain the United States annexing Canada and Greenland. Hold on, I got this Thames machine on. Y'all know I got a portable Thames machine, so I got the stem. So I just want, if y'all see my shoulder jumping out, that's what that is. All right, back to business. So this entire interview, I was happy. I didn't think that it was one that a lot of people would be entertained by when I was watching it. Like, it was just very dope to see those two having a conversation, because to me, it sets a tone that goes above and beyond what a lot of people try to do, which is bringing the censorship to a guy like Nick or anybody that doesn't agree with how people see a particular issue, especially when these people are backed by, you know, tremendous power and influence. So rather than engage in a conversation, have a debate, discuss certain topics, and let the audience see where they land on a lot of the issues, whose side they're on, if there are sides, but more so just to appreciate the exchange in ideas and thoughts, especially when you have guys like Nick and Tucker, which agree on so many things. But as I was saying, what ends up happening for people like Tucker, as we're seeing people who are mad at him being featured on Turning Point, and being mad for him interviewing Nick. I randomly just saw Josh Hammer, maybe because I tweeted something at him. So now I'm seeing a lot of his stuff in my algorithm. I don't know, but it's the same corny people. And I shouldn't say corny, but Josh Hammer does come across like just corny. Even Officer Tatum, he's been moving real. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Officer Tatum's been moving real corny to me too, because it's like, I just don't understand how these Christians really will go to a certain point where they're willing to justify any and everything Israel does. And it's almost like we back them in. Officer Tatum has clearly been backed into a corner where he's just going to pick a side. So based on him just picking a side and picking Israel, I feel like now it creates a bias and a whole bunch of blind spots for him to see the entire issue, because he's getting picked on maybe so much, or having people, so many people say things to him, calling him out for his views on Israel, all these different things. But he has to, in my opinion, I think influencers, and obviously I'm not on Officer Tatum's level yet, but we coming. Dion voice, we coming. But seriously, I think it's a responsibility for influencers and people that are leading people, teaching people, to make it their business to be as objective as possible. As objective as possible, especially on issues like this. Especially on issues like this where it's, I mean, I believe it's a genocide. Officer Tatum clearly doesn't. And the reason why he doesn't, in my opinion, is because he puts his principles, morals, values to the side based on tribalism, based on fear, and not necessarily his fear, but the fear of Israelis, the fear of Zionists, the fear of some of the Jewish population, and him being a part of that tribe. I believe it's impacting him in a way in how he's seeing things, or perhaps how he's missing out on certain things. So Josh Hammer, I'm not surprised by him. I'm not surprised by him. But let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. And even with Officer Tatum, bro, it's okay to admit, like, yo, I'm rethinking this. Maybe that's what Charlie Kirk was doing. I don't know. But back to Nick and Tucker. This was dope. And I didn't even realize this. Nick was naming off the people that he's been on interviews with. Dave Smith and Tucker stand out to me because those are my guys. But even Candace, when you look at it, we all know that the podcast bros and sis, however you want to look at it, YouTube is now the mainstream. YouTube is now the mainstream. Sorry, the oven's just letting us know that the oven's ready. Turn that oven off. I'm just joking. It's all good. I'll deal with that later. No, I'm joking. See, Nick rubbing off on me, man. See, this is why I got to be careful. You got to be careful who's rubbing off on you. But what was I on? But yeah, just back to Nick. He's interviewed with Dave. He interviewed with Candace. YouTube is mainstream. So him being able to be on these YouTube platforms, X, where people are able to see him, people are able to see the long form and not just the clips. See, Josh Hammer, he wants everybody to just see Nick Fuentes clips, because that way they can propagandize people, not show any context, highlight areas where he may just be joking or being sarcastic or whatever else. And that way we never feel that we have to look into his long form content. This is one of the reasons why I stopped even putting up shorts a while ago, because I feel like people were receiving things that I was saying completely out of context. Next thing you know, I'm going back and forth with people trying to explain things for 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, yo, this is like, how did you see this post any other way? But everybody looks at the shorts, obviously different, especially when we don't have the full context. So this is officially a declaration, or I don't even know if you want to put, Nick wants to plant his flag in mainstream media, whatever he wants to call it. But Nick is here, bro. Nick has arrived. Nick has arrived, and I like it. I love it. And you want to know why I support Nick so much? One of the reasons why I support Nick so much, even though, and I hate that I even have to say this, and I'm only going to say it to prove a point, and then I'm really going to work on not saying this anymore. But I was getting ready to say, you want to know why I support Nick so much, even though I don't agree with him, everything that he says? Why do I even have to say that? And I think Dave Smith was saying that as well. You want to know why I support Nick? Because Nick is genuine. He comes across as being real, and he tells me what's on his mind. He's not telling me what I want to hear. This is a mainstream moment for Nick. I'm happy for him. And now all these people that have had issues with bringing him on their shows, they're going to look like a little scary. I'll be totally honest. They're going to look a little bit scary when it comes to whether or not they'll actually bring him on for a conversation. And even the text messages that came out with Dinesh D'Souza, I believe that's his name, the gentleman that Nick debated, those text messages that came out, and maybe I'll actually leave a screenshot of those in the video. But those text messages they were saying wild stuff. Matter of fact, let me pull it up right now. I'm telling y'all, my shoulder. Think positive. All right, let me get to these. Denise D'Souza. All right, let me share this screen real quick for y'all. That way I don't have to put it in later. All right, so I believe this is the first one, or is this the second one? All right, so this is the first text, I believe. Let me zoom out just to make sure this is the first one. Yep. All right, so it says, you have no idea. This is from Charlie Kirk. You have no idea the damage you did by talking to him and complimenting him. You are making even bigger. We've been fighting this guy for 6 years, and you are the first mainstream voice to debate and give him a compliment, which then makes him bigger and more powerful. So the couple typos, I'm picturing Charlie Kirk writing this furiously, like typing fast. Let's go through this. You have no idea the damage you did by talking to him and complimenting him. Let's just leave it right there. Damage to who? Damage to America? For America to be able to hear censored voices? What damage does Charlie Kirk think that the American people aren't intelligent enough to hear a conversation and walk away with their own understanding of whether or not they want to support Nick Fuentes? Just like I'm assuming a lot of these people have done the same when it comes to them deciding to support Charlie Kirk. They hear him debate, and based on hearing him, they make a judgment call, whether or not they're rocking with him or they're not rocking with him. So why does Charlie Kirk believe that we can't have this conversation, that we can't see this conversation and decipher between whether or not Nick is a positive, negative, whether we agree with him in this area, disagree with him in that area, whatever it may be? Why not have the conversation? What a lot of these people are scared of, in my opinion, they're scared of platforming Nick because Nick's the type of guy who keeps it so real that it forces you to do the same, or you look silly in front of your audience. And when you're not being real, what you end up doing is contradicting yourself. People can call you out. Well, you got all that energy in this interview over here. You know, let's say a Charlie Kirk with a Gavin Newsom. You'll sit down with Gavin Newsom, who's making it legal for parents not to, or teachers not to have to tell parents that their kids are being identified, going to school as John, and in school being called Jessica. That's what Gavin Newsom's putting in play. Gavin Newsom's putting in play boys playing sports against girls. Is that not damaging? But then you're telling me that you can't sit down with Nick. Why? Is it just the Israel issue? Is it just the Jewish issue? Oh, it's because of the people that back you. It's because of the people that give you money, a part of that 140 million that Turning Point was making every year. We're not stupid. All right, we're not stupid. You are making him even bigger. So what? We've been fighting this guy for 6 years. Who's this we? Who's this we? And this is so corny to me. You know, obviously, rest in peace to Charlie, but this is a corny mindset. We've been fighting this guy for 6 years. Like, y'all been jumping Nick for 6 years, and he's bigger than ever. So clearly, doesn't that say something? Doesn't that tell you that the American people are moving more in Nick's direction than your direction? We've been jumping this guy for 6 years. Turning Point USA, Daily Wire, like the mainstream news outlets. He can't fly. He was on a no-fly list. He can't open up a checking account. The man can't do anything. I don't even think he could have a PayPal. Y'all been fighting him for 6 years, and this is what y'all produced? Don't be mad at Denise. Be mad at y'all for a few different reasons. One, that y'all couldn't take somebody out where all y'all jumping them for 6 years. And two, for not being willing to recognize, like, you know what, let's just have a conversation. And I saw somebody comment on the live show that we were talking about this issue as well. And they were referring to Charlie saying that, oh, eventually he would have debated Nick. Knock it off. Charlie would have been running from that debate as long as possible. Matter of fact, the video that we did on when I was reviewing the video that Nick did maybe a few months ago on Charlie Kirk, that was one of our most watched videos, actually. And it had the funny thumbnail, I think, with Debo. Or no, that was the Forrest Gump one. But neither here nor there. Charlie, I believe, would have ran. And Charlie, to be totally honest, was handcuffed. He would have been handcuffed in that fight. He would have been fighting Nick with his hands behind his back. And the reason why I say that is because Charlie can't be himself. He's demonstrated that in the text messages that he's recently, or that have recently been put out there by Candace, or things that he's told Tucker or Dave Smith. it's very clear. It's not an accident that Tucker is on stage. So clearly he let his team know as well the direction that he was moving in, but he did not feel like he could express that yet, perhaps, to his followers. So when you can't keep it real and 100 with Nick in a conversation, how do you think that's going to go? So it's not that I think that Charlie is just not as good of a debater as Nick or whatever. I don't know. I don't care about all that stuff. I don't care about all that stuff because you can go in and win a debate and me still walk away with it disagreeing with all of your policies, but you just may be able to win a debate. Now, if I had to say who's a better debater, I just think that Nick is talented on another level. I'll be totally honest. And I believe that Nick has a certain level of fearlessness balanced with composure. Because if you look at a lot of these, this young crazy, see it? If you look at a lot of these away games that Nick had, all these interviews have been away games that Nick has had to take. Think about that. He's not playing home games. This generational run that he's talking about, this is an away game. How can y'all not respect that? He doesn't know, like he said, what he was walking into with Tucker, whether it's a hostile environment, whatever may happen. He does not know all that stress that he was joking around about, perhaps wondering like, hey, you know, is this Tucker's booking my travel? Like, should I be concerned? Is it? Those are real things, in my opinion, that do weigh on you and could impact your performance. But Nick is just built for this. Certain cats are just built for this. So let's keep going to the second. Let's keep going to the second part. So it says, this was a massive mistake that you did this. He's vermin and you just gave him one of the biggest boosts of his career. I don't even know why Denise would put this out about Charlie. It's almost as if he's angry at Charlie. This makes Charlie Kirk look very, very bad. Very bad. This makes Charlie Kirk look very bad. This makes Charlie Kirk look like a lot of the establishment gatekeepers that we talk about that don't want to turn things over to the next generation, that don't want to have conversations. They want to silence certain people and censor certain people that they just disagree with because they're scared to sit down and have a conversation with them, or because they're handlers, which is probably more of the case. And well, I don't know, Charlie's maybe a mixture, or they're handlers, I was going to say, won't allow you to sit down with a guy like Nick. So let me move off this. You know what I wonder? I wonder who are going to be some of the people that pop out there and now want to bring Nick on their shows. That's what I really wonder, because people are probably going to say, well, I'm not going to bring him on just because Tucker brought him on. Now it's going to look like I'm just doing what Tucker did. Other people are going to be like, yo, it is what it is. I'm bringing him on. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Was there anything else I wanted to discuss? Yeah, I'm actually impressed by Tucker and Nick, perhaps more so with Nick, not feeling the need to try to make Tucker look silly, bad, embarrass him when it comes to bringing up the convo with the Fed talk around his dad, because we all know it, especially I know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to, probably mostly Nick Fuentes fans, or Nick Fuentes, people that align more with Nick Fuentes. I don't want to say fans or supporters yet, but people that more so align with Nick, maybe more than Tucker. And even if you're completely objective, I think most people looking at the back and forth between Tucker and Nick would acknowledge, even the people that dislike Nick, that Nick got the best of Tucker, that Nick embarrassed Tucker, made him look extremely bad, used his own words against him to flip that on him. I'm thinking about guys like even Patrick Bet-David, who obviously, I believe he has a very good relationship with Tucker. Jason Whitlock, who loves Tucker Carlson, one of his favorite people, but he went up there the next day and was like, yo, this Nick Fuentes, like, he was real slick in his response to Tucker. Y'all know I love Tucker, but this was his energy. So it'll be interesting. Maybe he'll even get on a conversation with Jason Whitlock. Who knows? Did they have a back and forth? Jason Whitlock had a back and forth with somebody, I remember. I'm not sure if it was with Nick, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how all this plays out. Very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Most of this interview, the only downside about this interview, but I thought it was very good, but for a lot of us that already know Nick's story, when we hear his interview, when he sits down with a guy like Tucker, it's different than if he's sitting down with somebody who they don't have to go through, well, this is how, this happened when I was 18 and this happened when we could just get to the issues and have a dope conversation about elevating and helping the United States of America get back to where, or let me not say get back. Let me not say get back, because even if you look at it as far as conserving certain values, there needs to be a certain balance. There's certain things that we need to conserve, and there's also other things that need to be changed. In my opinion, you can have your opinion, it's all good, but there needs to be a certain balance. There needs to be a certain balance. And perhaps one other thing that this conversation, or the responses to this conversation by a guy like Mark Levin, who, if you saw his response, I don't know if it's worth your time, but you can imagine some of the things that he was saying. He's calling Nick a punk and all this other stuff. These people are now showing how silly it is to be in the gang of the Democrats or to be a part of the gang of the Republicans. The moderates in the middle, we need something else. And a lot of these conversations, or a lot of the responses to this conversation, to me, I don't know if it's done that for y'all, but it's just shown like, yo, these people are like, they're two sides of the same coin. It doesn't matter. They need each other. They're both, the radicals on both sides are silly, crazy. At best, they're just opportunistic. They're just not people that I believe have amazing integrity. They'll just do and say anything in order to win people's support, because there's no checks and balance system like a third party or just a voice of realness and common sense would create with a guy like Nick, or a guy running, actually running as a politician, whoever it may be. Just in these conversations, when you just have the Democrats and the Republicans, it can turn into a very goofy conversation. Like, you can almost find yourself like you wake up from a bad dream, and it's like, where were you? It's like, I was at the CNN desk with Abby Phillip and Scott Jennings arguing about that. I'm joking a little bit, but y'all get what I'm saying. These goofy combos where people, and I shouldn't even say that those combos are goofy, but it is goofy when people on those shows can't just simply acknowledge they're wrong, and they prioritize either their relationship and affiliation to their political party or their relationship with their sponsors and funders. So I already been talking y'all heads off for about 25 minutes. We'll wrap it up here. I believe I'm also going to put out the Q&As as well. So I put out the Q&As. Don't typically put out the Q&As, but I'm going to try to put out the Q&As. Am I going to try, or am I going to do it? We don't try. I'll put out the Q&As, at least part of them. He had Q&As for like 2 hours. So at least I'll put out some of those and let y'all enjoy those as well. On that note, appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate y'all always tapping in and showing me love. Let's continue to build. Let's continue to grow. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Please, please, please. Somebody said something earlier on our live show. It's like, don't let Google decide. That's the energy we on. Don't let Google decide. We determine our own algorithm. Don't let Google put certain things and determine what you're going to be, caught up in as far as the algorithm. Let us decide. So, and if you could do me a favor, leave a comment. Leave a comment, even if it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, or even if it's just a saying, what's up? What's up? Tapping in from wherever you're from. All right. So if I was going to do it, I'm tapping in from Miami. So, all right, let me go get this shoulder right. I'll see y'all on the next one. Evening.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, L&G, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.